I was standing in the marble entrance hall of my own home, the home I had designed with my late husband Richard 23 years ago, when my son-in-law called me a whore. Not quietly, not in private, in front of my entire family gathered for Thanksgiving dinner. "Who invited this fat whore? Disappear from my sight!" Derek's voice echoed off the custom crown molding I'd personally selected in Florence. His face was purple with rage, a vein pulsing at his temple. Around us, the room went absolutely silent. My sister Margaret stood frozen with a wine glass halfway to her lips. Derek's parents stared in horror from beside the fireplace. My teenage nephew suddenly found his phone very interesting. But what shattered my heart into 1,000 pieces wasn't Derek's venom. It was my daughter. Vanessa stood 5 feet away from me, tears streaming down her pale face, and she said nothing. She didn't move. She didn't defend me. She just stood there, paralyzed, while her husband called her mother a whore in front of everyone we knew. Derek grabbed my cashmere coat, the one Richard had bought me in Paris on our 40th anniversary, and threw it on the floor like garbage. My Cartier bracelet caught the light as I instinctively reached to adjust it, a nervous habit I'd had for decades. "This is my house now," Derek continued, his voice dropping to a menacing whisper that somehow felt more threatening than his shouting. "You need to learn your place, Eleanor. You're a guest here. Act like one or get out." I looked around at the entrance I was standing in. The Italian marble I'd selected myself. The chandelier I'd hunted for in Prague. The exact shade of cream paint I'd mixed by hand because nothing else was quite right. Every single inch of this house held a memory of Richard and me building our dream together. And this man, this person I'd welcomed into my family, supported financially more times than I could count, treated like my own son, was telling me it was his house. I took a deep breath. My hands were shaking, but I forced them still. I bent down, picked up my coat with as much dignity as I could gather, and adjusted my bracelet one more time. When I spoke, my voice was quiet, but every person in that room heard me. "Dear, this estate belongs to me alone." Derek's face twisted into something ugly. Something that looked almost like panic flickered in his eyes before rage took over again. Vanessa finally moved. She reached for Derek's arm. "Derek, please. This is my mother." "Your mother," he cut her off sharply, "needs to understand that things have changed. She signed the papers. This is done." "Papers? What papers?" I looked at my daughter, really looked at her. "Vanessa, what is he talking about?" She couldn't meet my eyes. That's when I knew. Whatever was happening here was so much bigger than a Thanksgiving argument. This was planned, calculated, and somehow I had walked right into it. I left that night without eating, without answers, without my daughter defending me even once. But 3 days later, what I uncovered about Derek Mitchell, about both of them, would change everything forever. Before I tell you what happened, let me ask you something. Have you ever had someone you trusted completely betray you in the worst way imaginable? Have you ever discovered that the people you love most in the world have been plotting against you? Drop a comment and let me know where you're watching from, because this story is going to show you that even at 67 years old, I'm nobody's victim. Let me back up and tell you how this nightmare really began, because the warning signs were there all along. I just didn't want to see them. My name is Eleanor Diane Whitmore. I'm 67 years old, and if you'd asked me 18 months ago to describe my life, I would have said I was blessed, truly blessed. Richard and I had built everything together. We started our interior design firm in a tiny studio apartment in Manhattan back in 1985, working 16-hour days, eating ramen noodles, dreaming of the day we'd design homes for people who actually had furniture to put in them. By the time we retired in 2018, Whitmore Design had created over 300 luxury homes and commercial spaces across the Northeast. We were successful. We were happy. We were partners in every sense of the word. The Whitmore estate, Our personal home on 12 acres of waterfront property in Connecticut was our masterpiece. Every room, every detail, every carefully chosen piece was intentional. It was our legacy, our love story in architecture. And then, on a Tuesday morning in March, Richard had a heart attack while pruning the rose bushes. He was gone before the ambulance arrived. I was 65 years old, and for the first time in 42 years of marriage, I was completely alone in our dream house. The silence was unbearable. Some nights I'd walk from room to room just to hear my own footsteps, just to feel less alone. Vanessa became my lifeline during those early months. She came every single day, bringing groceries, sitting with me while I cried over photo albums, helping me sort through Richard's things. My only daughter, my baby. She was 32 then, married to Derek for 2 years, and she seemed genuinely devoted to helping me survive my grief. "Mom, you don't need to worry about anything," she'd say, squeezing my hand. "Derek and I are here for you. Always." I believed her with my whole heart. Derek seemed supportive too, in his own way. He'd show up to mow the lawn, fix technical issues with my computer, handle the things Richard used to take care of. He was 36, handsome, always impeccably dressed in expensive suits. He worked in finance, something with investment portfolios and corporate clients that I never fully understood. At family gatherings, he was charming. He'd bring expensive wine, tell stories that made everyone laugh, compliment my cooking. Richard had never fully warmed to Derek, though. I remembered a conversation we'd had about 6 months before Richard died. We were sitting on the back terrace, watching the sunset over the water. "There's something off about him," Richard had said quietly. "Watch how he looks at things in this house, like he's appraising them, calculating their value." I'd laughed it off. "You're being paranoid. He's just interested in our work. He appreciates good design." "Maybe," Richard had said, but the troubled look on his face stayed with me. "Just be careful around him, Eleanor. If anything ever happens to me, be careful." I wish I'd listened. God, how I wish I'd listened. Richard had left everything to me, of course. The estate, a $4.5 million investment portfolio, 3 commercial properties in Manhattan that generated substantial rental income. Our attorney, Charles Hendricks, Richard's friend since their college days, had walked me through everything during that horrible week after the funeral. "You're financially secure for the rest of your life, Eleanor," Charles had assured me. Richard made sure of that, and there's plenty left over to leave Vanessa a substantial inheritance when the time comes. I wasn't worried about money. I was worried about filling the empty hours, about finding a reason to get out of bed in the morning, about living without Richard's terrible jokes, his warm hand in mine, his voice calling me Ellie in that way that always made me smile. Vanessa and Derek became my new focus. I threw myself into being the supportive mother-in-law, the generous widow who could help the young couple build their life together. I paid for their anniversary trip to Hawaii. I helped them with a down payment on a new car when Derek said his lease was ending. I hosted them for dinner at least twice a week. Looking back now, I can see how foolish I was, how desperate for connection, how easily manipulated. The first strange thing happened about 4 months after Richard's funeral. I was having lunch with Vanessa at our favorite bistro in town when Derek called her. The conversation was brief, but I caught fragments of it. "Did you ask her yet?" "Well, when? The lawyer said we need to move fast if we want." When Vanessa hung up, she looked uncomfortable. She tucked her phone away quickly and gave me a tight smile. "Everything okay, sweetheart?" I asked. "Fine. Derek just wanted to know when I'd be home." She changed the subject immediately, asking about my plans to volunteer at the art museum. But she barely touched her salmon after that, and she kept glancing at her phone. I told myself I was reading too much into it. Grief does strange things to your mind, makes you suspicious of shadows. A week later, Derek showed up at the estate on a Tuesday morning, unannounced, unexpected. "I was in the neighborhood," he said, though our secluded property wasn't exactly near anything. "Thought I'd check on that leak in your guest bathroom." "What leak?" I hadn't mentioned any leak to him or Vanessa, but he was already inside, walking through my home with a confidence that felt off. He commented on things, touched things. "You know, Eleanor, this place is really a lot for one person to maintain. Have you thought about what you'll do long term? I mean, at your age." At my age. Like I was some fragile old woman on death's door instead of a healthy 65-year-old who still did yoga 4 times a week and traveled internationally. "I'm managing perfectly well," I said, an edge creeping into my voice. Of course. I just mean accidents happen when you're alone. Falls, medical emergencies. It would be terrible if something happened and no one was here to help you." After he left, I went to close my home office door. I always kept it closed, always, and found it slightly ajar. Inside, Richard's filing cabinet, the one with all our personal legal documents, had been opened. Papers were slightly out of order. Someone had been going through our private files. "Did you go into my office when you were here earlier?" I asked Derek on the phone that evening. "Your office? No, why would I?" He sounded genuinely confused, innocent. "Maybe Vanessa moved something when she was helping you organize last week?" But Vanessa hadn't been over in 10 days. That's when the little things started adding up in my mind. Mail from Charles Hendricks's law office would arrive already opened, the envelope torn. "Oh, I'm so sorry, Mom," Vanessa said when I mentioned it. "I was grabbing your mail and accidentally opened it without looking. I wasn't thinking." Derek started asking questions during our family dinners, casual questions that felt increasingly intrusive. "So, Eleanor, is the estate in a trust, or is it just in your name directly? Have you updated your will since Dad passed? What happens to the commercial properties if something happens to you? Does Vanessa inherit automatically, or is there some complicated legal process?" I'd deflect or give vague answers, but his persistence made my stomach turn. Vanessa would jump in quickly, changing the subject, but she always looked anxious when he brought up my finances, like she was afraid of what I might say, or what he might reveal. Then, about 8 months after Richard's death, Derek pitched me what he called an incredible investment opportunity. We were sitting at my kitchen table, the custom walnut table Richard had designed himself, and Derek spread out glossy brochures for luxury condos in Miami. "I have a client who's developing these properties," he explained with that charming smile. "Ground floor opportunity, Eleanor. I could get you in at half the public price. You'd triple your money in 2 years, guaranteed." "I'm not interested in risky investments," I said firmly. Richard and I always kept our portfolio conservative. Steady growth, minimal risk. "Conservative is for people who don't have much to lose," Derek laughed. But there was something sharp underneath it. "You're sitting on millions, Eleanor. That money could be working so much harder for you." Richard was brilliant, but he was old school. Times have changed. "The answer is no, Derek." His smile didn't quite reach his eyes anymore. "Suit yourself. I was just trying to help family. But if you change your mind, I won't." After he left, I felt deeply uneasy. I couldn't put my finger on why exactly. Derek had been nothing but polite, nothing but helpful. So why did I feel like I'd just narrowly avoided something dangerous? Richard's voice echoed in my memory. "Be careful around him, Eleanor." Over the next few months, things shifted in ways I couldn't ignore. Vanessa started canceling our standing lunch dates. "Derek needs me for something," became her constant refrain. "Derek has a work thing I need to attend." Her entire world seemed to revolve around Derek suddenly, and I felt myself being slowly, methodically pushed to the margins of her life. When I did see her, she looked exhausted. There were dark circles under her eyes that makeup couldn't quite hide. She'd lost weight. Her hands shook sometimes when she thought I wasn't looking. "Honey, is everything all right?" I asked one afternoon when she came over. "You seem stressed." "Everything's fine, Mom." But her voice was too tight, too defensive. "Why wouldn't it be? You just seem worried about something. If there's anything you need to talk about." "I'm not worried. You're imagining things." She said it too forcefully, standing up abruptly. Derek says you've been acting paranoid lately, accusing him of going through your things, questioning his advice. He's just trying to help you, Mom. I never accused him of anything. I simply asked a question. Well, it makes him feel like you don't trust him. Like you think he's some kind of criminal or something. Vanessa grabbed her purse. Do you know how hard it is for him, trying to help you while you treat him with constant suspicion? When had I become the problem? When had my reasonable questions become paranoid accusations? Vanessa, sweetheart, I never meant to. I have to go. Derek's expecting me. She left, and I sat alone in my kitchen, wondering when exactly my relationship with my daughter had become so strained. When had she started defending Derek's feelings over my legitimate concerns? The final straw came about 14 months after Richard's death. I went to my bank to deposit a check, and the manager, Jennifer Chen, asked to speak with me privately in her office. Mrs. Whitmore, I wanted to personally confirm some changes to your accounts that were submitted yesterday. My stomach dropped. Changes? I didn't submit any changes. Jennifer's face went pale. Someone came in yesterday afternoon with power of attorney paperwork, requesting to be added as a joint account holder on your primary checking and savings accounts. Who? But I already knew. Your son-in-law, Derek Mitchell. He had documents that appeared to be properly notarized, with your signature authorizing the change. The room spun. I never gave Derek power of attorney. I never signed any such documents, ever. Jennifer immediately called her supervisor. They pulled the documents. The signature looked superficially like mine, but it wasn't. Someone had forged my signature. Someone had tried to gain legal access to steal my money. We're flagging this as potential fraud and identity theft, Jennifer said. Mrs. Whitmore, we'll launch an immediate investigation. No changes will be made to your accounts. I drove home with my hands shaking so badly I had to pull over twice. Derek had tried to access my bank accounts, with forged documents, with my forged signature. This wasn't me being paranoid. This wasn't grief making me suspicious of innocent behavior. This was real. This was deliberate. This was criminal. And if Derek had tried to forge power of attorney documents for my bank accounts, what else had he forged? What else had he been planning? How long had this been going on? That night, I went through every single document in my home office. Property deeds, insurance policies, investment account statements, my will. Everything Richard and I had carefully organized over 4 decades. Everything looked correct, but I didn't trust my own eyes anymore. I didn't trust anything anymore. At 11 o'clock that night, I called Charles Hendricks. Charles, I need you to audit everything. Every single legal document I have. Check for forgeries, unauthorized changes, anything suspicious. Eleanor, what's happened? His voice was sharp with concern. Derek tried to get joint access to my bank accounts today using forged power of attorney documents. The silence on the other end lasted several seconds. Then, I'm coming to your house first thing tomorrow morning. Don't talk to Derek or Vanessa until I get there. Don't answer the door if they show up. Do you understand me? Yes. Eleanor, listen to me carefully. If Derek is forging financial documents, there's no telling what else he's done or what he's planning to do. This is serious. This is criminal. We're going to find out exactly what he's up to, and we're going to stop him. I didn't sleep that night. I sat in Richard's favorite chair overlooking the water, and I wondered how everything had gone so terribly wrong. The man I'd welcomed into my family, trusted with my daughter, supported financially, that man was trying to steal my life's work right out from under me. And Vanessa, my precious daughter, where was she in all of this? That was the question that kept me awake as the sun rose over the water. The question that made my chest ache with a pain worse than losing Richard. Was Vanessa a victim like me? Or was she helping him? Charles Hendricks arrived at my estate at 8 o'clock the next morning with 2 bankers' boxes full of files and the most serious expression I'd ever seen on his usually cheerful face. "I pulled everything from our archives," he said, setting the boxes on my dining room table. "Every document Richard signed with our firm, every document you've signed since his death. We're going to compare them line by line, Eleanor. If Derek Mitchell has forged anything, we're going to find it." "Charles, I don't know how to thank you." "Don't." He looked at me with an intensity that reminded me why Richard had trusted him for 50 years. Richard was my best friend. "If someone is targeting his widow, targeting you, I'm going to find out exactly what they're doing, and then I'm going to help you destroy them." We spent the entire day going through paperwork, property deeds, tax documents, insurance policies, trust documents, my will. Page by page, signature by signature, comparing dates and notary stamps. Around 3 in the afternoon, Charles suddenly went completely still. He was holding a document I'd never seen before, a quitclaim deed for my estate. "Eleanor, did you sign this?" I looked at it carefully. It was dated 6 months earlier. The signature looked superficially like mine, similar loops, similar slant, but something about it was wrong. The pressure was different. The rhythm was off. "No, I've never seen that document before in my life." Charles's jaw tightened. "This quitclaim deed transfers 50% ownership of your estate to Vanessa and Derek Mitchell jointly. It was supposedly notarized by a Thomas Brennan." He pulled out his phone and made a quick call. After a terse conversation, he hung up with fury in his eyes. Thomas Brennan had his notary license revoked 3 years ago for fraudulent notarization. He's been under investigation for running a document forgery operation. This deed is completely, absolutely fraudulent. I felt like I'd been punched in the chest. Someone forged my signature to steal half my house? That's exactly what they did, or tried to do. The good news is, this was never actually filed with the county records, probably because Derek knew it wouldn't hold up to any real scrutiny. "But Eleanor..." Charles leaned forward, his voice grave. "The fact that this document exists means they're building a case, creating a paper trail. If something happened to you, an accident, a sudden illness, anything, they could produce documents like this and claim partial or full ownership. They're setting up a legal framework to steal everything. You think they'd hurt me?" My voice came out as a whisper. "I'm not saying they'd necessarily commit violence, but financial predators often use intimidation, isolation, and legal manipulation to coerce their victims. They make you feel confused, forgetful, like you're losing your grip on reality. It's a form of psychological abuse called gaslighting. They break you down until you're willing to sign anything just to make it stop." I thought about Derek's constant comments about my age, my memory, my ability to manage my own affairs. The way Vanessa had started calling me paranoid whenever I questioned anything. The way they'd both been slowly, systematically making me doubt my own mind. "What do I do?" I asked. "First, we document everything, every suspicious incident, every uncomfortable conversation, every time you felt pressured. Second, we secure all your assets with additional legal protections. And third..." Charles hesitated. "Third, we need to find out exactly what Derek Mitchell is up to. His full background, his finances, his history. And Eleanor, I hate to say this, but we need to determine whether Vanessa is another victim or an active participant." The word participant about my own daughter made bile rise in my throat. I can't believe Vanessa would willingly. "I hope you're right. I truly hope you're right. But we need to know for certain." That afternoon, Charles connected me with my neighbor, Patricia Romano. I knew Trish from yoga classes at the community center, a fit, no-nonsense woman in her early 50s who'd always been friendly but not intrusive. What I didn't know was that she'd spent 25 years as a police detective specializing in financial crimes and elder abuse. "Eleanor, honey," Trish said when Charles explained the situation over coffee at my kitchen table. "I've been worried about you for months. I've seen Derek's car here at odd hours when your car was gone. I've heard him yelling at you through the windows. I almost called the police twice, but I didn't want to overstep boundaries." You heard him yelling at me? Last month, I was walking my dog past your driveway around dusk, and I heard him screaming at you about being ungrateful and making things difficult for people who are just trying to help. His exact words. I stood there for 5 minutes debating whether to knock on your door, but then he stormed out to his car and left. I barely remembered that conversation. I'd blocked it out, convinced myself it was just a disagreement, nothing serious. Here's what we're going to do, Trish said, slipping into what I'd later recognize as her detective mode. You're going to document everything from now on. Buy a small digital recording device. They sell them online for about $50. Look like a pen or a USB drive. When Derek comes over, when he calls, have it running. Connecticut is a one-party consent state, which means you can legally record any conversation you're part of. We're building an evidence file. Evidence for what exactly? For whatever legal action you decide to take: restraining order, criminal fraud charges, civil lawsuit, maybe all three. But we need documentation. Everything they say, everything they do. Dates, times, witnesses. Charles added, I'm also recommending we hire a private investigator, someone who can dig into Derek's background, his real financial situation, employment history, previous relationships. Whatever he's hiding, we're going to find it. The investigator's name was Marcus Webb. Former FBI, now ran a private investigation firm specializing in financial fraud and white-collar crime. He was expensive, $5,000 up front plus daily fees, but Charles insisted it was worth every penny. Think of it as protecting your legacy, Charles said. Richard would want you to fight back. Marcus started his investigation immediately. Meanwhile, I ordered the recording device and started paying attention. Really paying attention. 3 days later, Derek showed up unannounced again. This time, I was ready. The recorder was in my cardigan pocket, running. Eleanor, we need to have a serious conversation about your estate planning, he said, settling into my living room sofa like he owned it. His tone was pleasant, but there was steel underneath. I'm very comfortable with my current estate planning, Derek. Thank you for your concern. That's the problem, though. You're not thinking clearly about this. Vanessa and I have been talking, and we're both genuinely concerned about your decision-making lately. My decision-making is perfectly fine. Is it? He leaned forward, his expression shifting to something that was probably meant to look caring, but felt predatory. You accused me of forging documents, Eleanor. You've been paranoid, seeing conspiracies where there aren't any. Vanessa's been crying herself to sleep worrying about you. I didn't accuse you of anything false. The bank has evidence that someone tried to use forged power of attorney documents to access my accounts. Derek's expression flickered. Just for a second, I saw something cold and calculating in his eyes. Then, the mask slipped back into place. That was a misunderstanding, a clerical error at the bank. But the fact that you immediately jumped to accusations, that you assumed the worst about me, shows exactly what I'm talking about. You're confused, Eleanor. At your age, cognitive decline can happen fast. Memory problems, poor judgment, difficulty managing complex financial affairs. We're trying to help you before you do something that hurts yourself or damages your family. At your age. There it was again, the constant reminder that I was old, incompetent, failing. I'm 66 years old, Derek. I'm not senile, I'm not incompetent, and I'm not confused. Of course not, he said smoothly. But you're also grieving, isolated out here, not thinking as clearly as you normally would. That's why Vanessa and I think it's time to consider a more structured arrangement. A power of attorney situation where we can help you manage your affairs, just until you're feeling more stable and capable. Absolutely not. That will never happen. Derek's jaw tightened, almost imperceptibly. You're being selfish, Eleanor. Do you have any idea how much stress you're putting on Vanessa? She cries every single night worrying about you out here alone, making poor decisions, pushing away the people who love you. If you really loved your daughter, you'd make this easier on her. You'd let us help you. The manipulation was so blatant, it took my breath away. He was trying to use my love for Vanessa, my guilt about being a burden, to coerce me into signing over control of my life. I think you should leave now, Derek. We're not done talking about this. Yes, we are. Get out of my house. He stood slowly, deliberately. You're going to regret this decision. Vanessa and I are trying to help you, but if you keep fighting us, if you keep making this difficult, there will be consequences. Are you threatening me? I'm warning you. He smiled, but it was the smile of a predator. You're old, Eleanor. You're alone. You're vulnerable. Accidents happen to people your age. Falls happen. You could die out here in this big empty house and no one would know for days. It would be such a tragedy. After he left, I sat trembling for 20 minutes. Then I called Trish. He threatened me, I said when she answered. He implied, Trish, I think he was threatening my life. I'm coming over right now. Don't move. And Eleanor, save that recording. We're taking this to the police. But before Trish arrived, Marcus Webb called. Mrs. Whitmore, you need to sit down. I found something significant. What is it? Derek Mitchell has $340,000 in gambling debts, sports betting mostly, high-stakes poker games. He's being actively threatened by loan sharks. His wages are being garnished. He's been fired from 2 previous jobs for embezzlement and financial misconduct, though criminal charges were never filed because he paid restitution both times. And Eleanor, Marcus paused. He's been married twice before. Both marriages ended with restraining orders filed by his ex-wives for financial abuse, coercion, and intimidation. I couldn't breathe. Does Vanessa know? I don't know yet. But there's more, and this is the part that's going to be hard to hear. Derek specifically targeted your family. I found evidence he researched your late husband's business online, studied your company's public financial filings, and attended multiple charity events where you were scheduled to appear. He engineered his meeting with Vanessa at that art gallery opening 3 years ago. He bribed one of the staff to introduce them. It wasn't chance. It wasn't romance. It was premeditated. The room spun. He married my daughter to get access to my money. That's exactly what he did, Mrs. Whitmore, and this is his pattern. His 2 previous wives, both were daughters of recently widowed wealthy women. He marries into families where the patriarch has just died, targets the vulnerable widow through the daughter, isolates her from other family members, and manipulates the legal system to gain access to the estate. What happened to the other widows? I was afraid to hear the answer. Marcus's voice dropped. The first one signed over power of attorney under duress and lost over $800,000 before her other adult children intervened and got law enforcement involved. Derek divorced his first wife and disappeared before charges could be filed. The second widow died in a fall down her basement stairs 6 months after Derek married her daughter. The death was ruled accidental, but there were questions, suspicious circumstances. The investigation was inconclusive. He killed her, I whispered. We don't know that for certain. But Mrs. Whitmore, I'm sharing all of this with the police and with Charles Hendricks. We're building a comprehensive case. But you need to be extremely careful from this moment forward. Don't see Derek alone ever again. Don't let him in your house. Install security cameras if you haven't already. And we need to find out whether Vanessa knows what he's doing or if she's being manipulated too. That night, Vanessa called. I almost didn't answer, but I needed to hear her voice. Needed to know if my daughter was lost to me completely. Mom, Derek told me you accused him of threatening you. That's absolutely insane. He's trying to help you and you keep attacking him for no reason. Vanessa, we need to talk. About Derek's past, about his gambling debts, about his previous marriages. Stop it! Just stop! Her voice was shrill, desperate. I am so tired of you spreading vicious lies about my husband. You're jealous that I have someone and you don't. You've been impossible since Dad died, and now you're trying to ruin my marriage because you can't stand to see me happy. Sweetheart, that's not true. I love you. I just want to protect you. Protect me? From what? From the man who loves me? From the only person who's been there for me while you've been wallowing in self-pity for over a year? She was crying now, her words tumbling out in a torrent. Derek was right about you. He said you'd try to turn me against him. He said you'd make up lies to drive a wedge between us. And here you are, doing exactly what he predicted. Vanessa, please listen to me. No. I don't want to hear any more of your paranoid conspiracy theories. Derek thinks you need professional help. Maybe therapy, maybe medication, maybe something more serious. I don't know. But until you can treat my husband with basic respect, until you can apologize for the horrible things you've said about him, I need space from you. Please don't do this. Goodbye, Mom. She hung up. I sat in my silent house and cried for the first time since Richard's funeral. Not just because my daughter had chosen her manipulative husband over me, but because I was starting to realize something devastating. She might actually know what Derek was doing. She might be helping him. Charles came over the next morning with more disturbing news. I did a comprehensive search of all county records in Connecticut and surrounding states, he said, spreading documents across my dining room table. Derek has filed 4 separate quitclaim deeds over the past 14 months, all supposedly signed by you, all attempting to transfer portions of your property to himself and Vanessa. None were successfully recorded because of irregularities or missing information, but he keeps trying different approaches. He's testing the system, looking for weaknesses. How is this legal? How is he not in prison? Because he's careful and experienced. The forgeries are sophisticated enough to pass initial scrutiny. By the time they're flagged as problematic, he claims it was a misunderstanding or a notary error. He's playing a long game, Eleanor. He's betting that eventually one will slip through, or that you'll die before anyone notices the full scope of what he's done. So what do I do? Charles smiled grimly. We set a trap. We let him think he's winning, and then we destroy him completely. That's when we started planning my counterattack. Over the next 2 weeks, Trish taught me things I never imagined a 67-year-old interior designer would need to know. How to install hidden cameras, how to document everything with timestamps and witnesses, how to think like a detective instead of a victim. You need to become invisible, she said one afternoon as we positioned a tiny camera in my home office bookshelf. Let Derek think you're defeated. Let him believe he's broken you down. Predators like him get careless when they think they've won. I installed 6 cameras throughout my house. Living room, home office, kitchen, entrance hall, master bedroom hallway, and one overlooking the back door. Each one motion-activated, cloud-connected, recording everything. If he breaks in again, we'll have him, Trish said with satisfaction. Meanwhile, Marcus Webb continued digging into Derek's life, and what he found made my blood run cold. He called me on a Thursday morning, his voice tight with urgency. Mrs. Whitmore, I need to show you something in person. Can I come over this afternoon? When Marcus arrived, he had his laptop and a thick folder of printed documents. He sat at my kitchen table and opened a spreadsheet that made my head spin. I've traced Derek's financial movements over the past 3 years, he said, since before he even met Vanessa. Look at this timeline. The spreadsheet showed a pattern that was sickeningly clear. 3 years ago, Derek had researched Richard's obituary online and found articles about Whitmore Design, our company's success, and our estate. He'd attended a charity auction where we donated a design consultation. He'd made friends with the gallery owner where Vanessa worked and paid him $2,000 to arrange an accidental meeting. He studied you like a mark, Marcus said. He knew Richard had just died. He knew Vanessa was vulnerable. He knew exactly how much you were worth. This wasn't opportunistic, Mrs. Whitmore. This was a calculated con from the very beginning. What about Vanessa? My voice was barely a whisper. When did she get involved? Marcus pulled out bank statements, Vanessa's accounts. This is where it gets complicated. About 8 months ago, a company called Senior Care Solutions LLC was registered in Delaware. The registered agent is Derek, but Vanessa is listed as a co-owner and has signing authority on the business account. What does this company do? Nothing legitimate. On paper, it provides senior care services. In reality, it's been billing your accounts for $2,400 a month for 8 hours of daily caregiving that you never received. Over the past 8 months, that's over $19,000. I felt sick. Someone's been stealing from me using a fake company? Yes, and here's where Vanessa's involvement becomes undeniable. Marcus pulled out another document, a FedEx receipt. 5 months ago, Vanessa sent a package from her home address to this location in Newark, New Jersey. I traced the address. It's a known document forger who's been under FBI investigation for 2 years. 3 days after that package was sent, the forged quitclaim deed for your house appeared in Derek's possession. Vanessa paid to have my signature forged. Yes, and there's more. Marcus opened another file. I interviewed Derek's second ex-wife, Patricia Gallagher, yesterday. She told me that Derek's pattern is to convince his wife that the mother-in-law is the problem. He isolates them from other family members, makes them financially dependent on him, and then slowly introduces them to the scheme. By the time they realize what's happening, they're complicit. They're trapped. If they try to back out, he threatens to make them take the fall for everything. You think he's manipulating Vanessa? I think he started out manipulating her. But Mrs. Whitmore, the evidence shows she's been actively participating for at least 5 months. The fake company, the forged documents, the coordinated gaslighting. At some point, she made a choice to help him. I wanted to argue. I wanted to defend my daughter. But the evidence was overwhelming. Patricia Gallagher told me something else, Marcus continued quietly. She said that when her mother died in that accidental fall, Derek's wife at the time claimed she knew nothing about Derek's plans. She said she was a victim too. But the insurance investigator found text messages between them discussing how to handle the old bat and how to make it look natural. The wife went to prison for manslaughter. Derek walked away free and collected the life insurance money. You think that's Derek's plan here too? To have Vanessa take the fall if something happens to me? I think that's exactly his plan. And I think we need to move fast because all the signs indicate he's getting desperate. That afternoon, Charles came over with a banker named Robert Chen and an estate attorney named Lisa Rodriguez. We sat in my living room, my beautiful living room that Richard and I had designed together, and planned my legal counterattack. First, we create an irrevocable living trust, Lisa explained. Every single asset you own goes into the trust. You're the primary beneficiary during your lifetime, so nothing changes for you day to day. But legally, you no longer own these assets. The trust does. Which means Derek can't touch them. He can't forge documents to transfer them. He can't inherit them through Vanessa. What happens to everything after I die? Whatever you want. You can name Vanessa as beneficiary with conditions. You can donate everything to charity. You can divide it among multiple beneficiaries. The point is, Derek gets nothing. And even if something happens to you tomorrow, he gets nothing. I want to establish the Richard and Eleanor Whitmore Foundation for Art Education, I said firmly. That's what Richard and I always planned. Everything goes to the foundation. It will provide scholarships for young artists, fund art programs in schools, support emerging designers. And Vanessa? Charles asked gently. I closed my eyes. Vanessa receives $1 and a letter explaining that she's been provided for generously during my lifetime and that her actions have made her ineligible for further inheritance. We can include a provision, Lisa said carefully, that allows the Foundation's board to make a discretionary grant to Vanessa if compelling evidence emerges after your death that she was coerced or incompetent. It leaves a door open, just in case. Fine. Include that. We spent 3 hours signing documents, page after page after page, creating the trust, transferring property titles, securing bank accounts, adding fraud alerts, and requiring in-person verification for any changes. building a legal fortress around everything Richard and I had built. As of this moment, Lisa said when we finished, Derek Mitchell and Vanessa Mitchell have zero legal claim to any of your assets. If something happens to you, they get nothing. The trust is irrevocable, which means even you can't change it without a court order. Good, I said. That's exactly what I want. Robert Chen, the banker, had been quietly reviewing my accounts during this meeting. Now he looked up with a grim expression. Mrs. Whitmore, there's something else. Over the past year, there have been 47 small withdrawals from your primary checking account, $50 to $200 each. They're small enough that they didn't trigger any fraud alerts, but they add up to over $6,000. I didn't make those withdrawals. I know. They were made using a debit card that was reported lost 14 months ago. We issued you a new card, but someone has been using the old card at various ATMs throughout Connecticut. Derek has my old debit card? It appears so. Probably stole it before you reported it missing. These are classic salami-slicing tactics, small thefts that fly under the radar. Charles made a note. Add theft and identity fraud to the list. We're building quite a case here. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about Vanessa, about the little girl who used to bring me dandelions from the yard and call them flowers, about the teenager who'd cried in my arms over her first heartbreak, about the young woman who'd been so excited to introduce me to Derek, so convinced she'd found her soulmate. Where had I lost her? When had she become someone who could steal from her own mother? I wanted to call her. I wanted to beg her to tell me the truth, to come clean, to choose me over Derek. But I knew it was too late for that. Around midnight, my phone rang. It was a number I didn't recognize. Hello? Mrs. Whitmore? A woman's voice, young, nervous. My name is Ashley Brennan. You don't know me, but I work at the law firm where Derek Mitchell used to work. I need to talk to you about something important. What is it? I saw him forge documents. Multiple times. I reported it to the partners and they fired him, but they didn't press charges because he paid back what he stole. But Mrs. Whitmore, he told me he was forging his mother-in-law's signature on estate documents. He said she had dementia and couldn't sign for herself, so the family authorized him to sign for her. I believed him. But then I saw the news story about elder financial abuse, and I recognized his photo, and I realized... Her voice broke. I realized he was lying. There was no dementia. He was just stealing from you. Are you willing to testify to what you saw? Yes. That's why I'm calling. I can't live with knowing I helped him hurt you. I'll testify. I'll give you copies of everything I kept. Thank you, Ashley. Thank you so much. I immediately called Marcus and Charles. Ashley Brennan's testimony would be devastating in court. The next day, Trish and I reviewed the camera footage from my house. I'd given her access to the cloud recordings, and she'd been monitoring them while I focused on the legal work. Eleanor, you need to see this, she said, pulling up footage from 3 days earlier. The video showed Derek letting himself into my house through the back door at 2 p.m, a time when I'd been at yoga class, which he apparently knew. He went straight to my home office and spent 45 minutes photographing documents, going through my desk drawers, copying files from my computer. Then he did something that made my blood turn to ice. He went into my master bathroom and opened my medicine cabinet. He took out each of my prescription bottles, blood pressure medication, thyroid medication, a low-dose aspirin, and photographed the labels. Then I watched him pull out his phone and start Googling something. I ran a trace on his search history through his IP address, Trish said. He was searching for drug interactions, specifically what combinations of your medications would cause a fatal reaction if the doses were increased. He was researching how to kill you and make it look like an accidental overdose or medication error. I couldn't speak. I couldn't breathe. My son-in-law was planning to murder me. There's more, Trish said quietly. She pulled up text messages that Marcus had obtained through a subpoena in preparation for criminal charges, messages between Derek and Vanessa. Derek, old Bat is getting suspicious. We need to move faster. Vanessa. How? She won't sign anything. Derek. Then we do it the other way. Like I told you. Make it look like an accident. Vanessa. I don't know if I can. Derek. You're already in too deep, babe. If she finds out about the fake company and the forged docs, you go to prison. Not me. You. So you decide. Do you want to be rich or do you want to be in prison? Vanessa. Okay. When? Derek. Thanksgiving. Whole family there. She'll be stressed, emotional, easy to stage a fall or a heart attack. No one will question it. The messages were from 2 weeks ago. Thanksgiving was in 3 days. They're planning to kill me at Thanksgiving dinner, I whispered. Yes, Trish said, which means we need to move now. Today. We're taking all of this to the police and we're getting arrest warrants. Charles arrived within the hour. We spent the rest of the day at the police station with Detective Sarah Morrison, the lead investigator for financial crimes and elder abuse. She reviewed every piece of evidence, the forged documents, the fake company, the stolen money, the surveillance footage, the text messages, Ashley Brennan's testimony about the forgeries, the research into medication overdoses. This is one of the most comprehensive elder fraud cases I've seen, Detective Morrison said. And the premeditation of violence takes it to another level. I'm getting arrest warrants for both Derek and Vanessa Mitchell. Fraud, forgery, conspiracy, theft, and conspiracy to commit murder. How long will that take? I can have the warrants by tomorrow morning. But Mrs. Whitmore, I need you to do something difficult. I need you to act normal. Invite them to Thanksgiving as planned. Let them come to your house. We'll be there in plain clothes with backup outside. When they make their move, when they do or say something incriminating, we'll arrest them on the spot. You want me to use myself as bait? I want to catch them in the act with witnesses present. It makes the case airtight, but I won't do it if you're not comfortable. Your safety is the priority. I thought about Richard, about everything we'd built together, about the life Derek was trying to steal from me. Let's do it, I said. Let's catch them. That night, I called Vanessa. My hands were shaking, but my voice was steady. Sweetheart, I'm sorry. You're right. I've been paranoid and unfair to Derek. Can we please have Thanksgiving together, like a family? I want to make things right. There was a long pause. Then, really, Mom? Really? I love you, Vanessa. You're my daughter. I don't want to fight anymore. I could hear her crying with relief. Thank you. Thank you so much. Derek will be so happy. We'll be there Thursday at 2 o'clock. Perfect. I'll cook all your favorites. After I hung up, I sat in the darkness of my living room and let myself feel everything I'd been holding back. Grief, rage, betrayal, fear. But underneath it all, something else was growing. Something cold and hard and absolutely unbreakable. Derek Mitchell had made a fatal mistake. He'd underestimated me. He'd thought I was just another lonely old widow he could manipulate and destroy. He had no idea who he was dealing with. In 3 days, my daughter and her husband were going to walk into my home expecting to commit murder. Instead, they were going to walk into a trap, and I was going to watch them fall. The morning of Thanksgiving, I woke up at 5 o'clock and couldn't fall back asleep. I lay in bed watching the sun rise over the water, thinking about all the Thanksgivings Richard and I had hosted in this house. The laughter, the warmth, the family. Today would be different. Today, my home would become a crime scene. Detective Morrison arrived at 9 in the morning, dressed in casual clothes, jeans, a sweater, a scarf. She looked like someone's aunt, not a police detective carrying a concealed weapon and a badge. "How are you holding up?" she asked. "I'm terrified," I admitted. "But I'm also ready. I want this over. We'll have 3 officers in plainclothes inside with you. Me, Officer Rodriguez, who'll pose as your book club friend, and Officer Kim, who'll be introduced as your neighbor's daughter visiting from California. We'll have 2 more in an unmarked car at the end of your driveway and a patrol unit on standby 3 minutes away. You'll be completely protected." Trish arrived next, carrying grocery bags full of food for our Thanksgiving meal. She hugged me tightly. "You're the bravest woman I know," she whispered. "Richard would be so proud of you." Charles came at 10, officially there as an old family friend, joining us for the holiday. Unofficially, he was there as my attorney to document everything and ensure my legal interests were protected. "The trust documents are all filed," he told me quietly while we were alone in the kitchen. "As of yesterday afternoon, you legally own nothing. The trust owns everything. Even if Derek somehow managed to force you to sign something today, which he won't because we won't let him, it would be meaningless. You can't transfer assets you don't own." "What about Vanessa? Have you heard anything?" Charles's expression softened with sadness. "Her attorney contacted me this morning. Apparently Vanessa tried to access her bank accounts yesterday and found them frozen. The police seized them as evidence. She called Derek in a panic. Marcus's contact at the phone company sent me the transcript. Derek told her to stick to the plan and everything will be fine once the old bitch is gone." I flinched at the words. The old bitch. That's what I'd become to them. "Eleanor, are you absolutely sure you want to do this?" Charles asked. "We have enough evidence to arrest them right now. You don't have to face them." "Yes, I do. I need to see their faces when they realize I've beaten them. I need them to know that I knew everything, that they underestimated me." "All right then. Let's cook a Thanksgiving dinner." The next few hours were surreal. I made turkey and stuffing, while Detective Morrison set up tiny wireless microphones throughout the dining room and living room. I baked my mother's famous pumpkin pie recipe while Officer Rodriguez checked the camera angles. I set the table with my good china, the Lenox pattern Richard and I had registered for when we got married, while Officer Kim tested the panic button they'd given me to wear on a necklace. Everything looked perfect, beautiful, normal, a trap disguised as a holiday meal. At 1:30, my sister Margaret arrived with her husband Tom. I'd called her 2 days ago and explained everything, the fraud, the threats, the plan for today. She'd been horrified, furious, and absolutely insistent on being here. "If my niece is planning to hurt you, I want to see it with my own eyes," Margaret had said, "and I want her to see me watching her do it." Margaret hugged me now, holding on longer than usual. "I can't believe Vanessa would do this to you," she whispered. "I can't believe she's capable of this." Neither could I, until I saw the evidence. At exactly 2 o'clock, I heard a car in the driveway. My heart started pounding so hard I thought everyone would hear it. Derek and Vanessa had arrived. I walked to the front door and opened it, forcing myself to smile, to act like the forgiving, foolish old woman they thought I was. Vanessa looked nervous. Her face was pale, her eyes red-rimmed like she'd been crying. She was wearing a blue dress I'd bought her for her birthday last year. Derek stood beside her in an expensive suit, his hand possessively on her lower back. "Mom," Vanessa said, her voice trembling, "thank you for inviting us. Thank you for giving us another chance." I pulled her into a hug, and for just a moment, I felt her relax against me. She felt so thin, so fragile. My little girl who was planning to kill me. "Come in, sweetheart," I said. "Everything's ready." They stepped into the entrance hall, the marble entrance where Derek had screamed at me and thrown my coat on the floor just 3 days ago. He looked around with barely concealed satisfaction, like he was surveying property he already owned. "Eleanor, thank you for being reasonable about all of this," Derek said smoothly. "Family is so important. We should never let misunderstandings come between us." Misunderstandings. He was calling attempted murder a misunderstanding. "You're absolutely right, Derek. Family is everything." I introduced them to the guests. Detective Morrison as my friend Sarah, Officer Rodriguez as my neighbor Maria, Officer Kim as Maria's daughter visiting from Los Angeles. Derek barely glanced at them. He was too focused on me, watching me with predatory attention. We sat down to dinner. I served turkey and stuffing, passed around cranberry sauce and green beans, poured wine. Everyone made small talk. Margaret asked about Derek's work. Vanessa complimented the pumpkin pie. Officer Kim told a funny story about traffic in Los Angeles. It all seemed so normal, so civilized. And then Derek made his move. Eleanor, before we eat, there's something Vanessa and I wanted to discuss with you, he said, pulling a folder out of his briefcase. We've been thinking about your situation, living alone out here, managing all these properties and financial accounts. It's a lot for anyone, especially at your age. At your age. Always at your age. We had our attorney draw up some documents that would make things easier for everyone, Derek continued, sliding papers across the table toward me. Just a simple power of attorney, so Vanessa and I can help you manage things. Take some of the burden off your shoulders. I looked at the documents. They were power of attorney forms, giving Derek and Vanessa complete control over my finances, my property, my medical decisions, everything. This seems very comprehensive, I said slowly. It's for your protection, Vanessa said quickly, too quickly. So we can help you, Mom, so you don't have to worry about anything. If you could just sign here, Derek said, producing a pen. Then we can enjoy our dinner and stop worrying about all these legal complications. His hand was shaking slightly. He was nervous, desperate. I picked up the pen. Around the table, I could see Detective Morrison and the other officers tense, ready to move. You know, I said conversationally, it's interesting. I was looking through some old files the other day, and I found some documents I didn't remember signing. Property transfers, account changes, strange things. Derek's face went very still. I don't know what you're talking about. Don't you? There was a quitclaim deed transferring half my house to you and Vanessa. Except I never signed it. Someone forged my signature. Vanessa's face went white. Mom, I can explain. And then there's this company called Senior Care Solutions. Apparently they've been billing me for caregiver services I never received. $19,000 over 8 months. Do you know anything about that, Derek? Eleanor, you're confused again, Derek said, but his voice had lost its smooth charm. This is exactly why you need help managing your affairs. I'm not confused. I'm perfectly clear. I set the pen down. I know about your gambling debts, your previous marriages, the restraining orders, the widow who died in that convenient fall down the stairs. I know about all of it. Derek stood up abruptly. What the hell is this? Are you wearing a wire? Is someone recording this? Derek, calm down, Vanessa whispered urgently. No, I won't calm down. This bitch has been spying on us. He turned to me with pure rage in his eyes. You think you're so smart, don't you? You think you figured everything out? Well, guess what, Eleanor? You're about to have a very unfortunate accident, right here, right now, and your family is going to watch. He reached for me, and Detective Morrison stood up, pulling out her badge. Derek Mitchell, I'm Detective Sarah Morrison. You're under arrest. The room erupted in chaos. Derek lunged toward me, but Officer Rodriguez was faster. He grabbed Derek's arm and twisted it behind his back in one smooth motion. Derek screamed in rage and pain. Get your hands off me. You have no right. We have every right, Detective Morrison said calmly, pulling out handcuffs. Derek Mitchell, you're under arrest for fraud, forgery, theft, elder abuse, and conspiracy to commit murder. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. Vanessa was on her feet, backing away from the table, her hands over her mouth. No, this isn't happening. Mom, what did you do? What did I do? I stood slowly, my legs trembling, but my voice steady. I protected myself from my own daughter and her criminal husband. That's what I did. Vanessa Mitchell, you're also under arrest, Detective Morrison said, nodding to Officer Kim, who moved toward my daughter with handcuffs. Me? I didn't do anything. Vanessa's voice was shrill with panic. Mom, tell them I didn't know what Derek was planning. Don't say another word, Vanessa, Derek snarled from where he was being restrained. Don't you dare say anything without a lawyer. But I didn't. Shut up, Derek screamed at her. And in that moment, I saw it. The mask completely dropped. The charming son-in-law was gone. What remained was something ugly and vicious, and I watched Vanessa recoil from him like she'd never really seen him before. "Vanessa," I said quietly, "I know about Senior Care Solutions, the fake company you and Derek used to steal from me. I know about the forged documents. I know about the text messages between you two planning to kill me today." Her face crumpled. "Mom, I didn't want—" "He said we had no choice." "There's always a choice," Margaret cut in, her voice cold with fury. "You chose to steal from your own mother. You chose to help that monster. You don't understand. Derek said if I didn't help him, he'd leave me with nothing. He said I'd go to prison and he'd walk away free." "So you decided to murder me instead?" I asked. "That was your solution?" Vanessa collapsed into a chair, sobbing. Officer Kim moved to cuff her hands, reading her rights while my daughter cried like a child. Charles stood up from his place at the table, pulling out a thick folder. "Before the police take them away, Eleanor, I think you should show them exactly what they were trying to steal." I nodded. My hands were steadier now. The fear was gone, replaced by something cold and clear. "Derek, Vanessa, I want you to understand something," I said. "Every document you forged, every signature you faked, every dollar you stole, it was all for nothing." "What are you talking about?" Derek spat. Charles opened the folder and pulled out legal documents, spreading them across the Thanksgiving table like evidence at a trial. "Mrs. Whitmore established an irrevocable living trust 3 days ago. Every asset she owned, the estate, the commercial properties, the investment portfolio, everything, was transferred into the trust. Eleanor Whitmore legally owns nothing anymore. The trust owns it all." I watched Derek's face as the realization hit him. "You can't do that." "I already did. The documents were filed with the court yesterday. Even if I wanted to give you access to my assets, I legally can't. They're not mine to give anymore." "And upon Mrs. Whitmore's death," Charles continued with evident satisfaction, "every penny goes to the Richard and Eleanor Whitmore Foundation for Art Education, a charitable foundation that will provide scholarships and support young artists for generations to come. You get nothing, Mr. Mitchell. Your wife gets nothing. All your planning, all your manipulation, all your crimes, for absolutely nothing." Derek's face turned purple. "You vindictive bitch. I'll contest it. I'll sue. You'll do nothing," Charles said calmly, "because you'll be in prison. And these documents are ironclad. I've been practicing estate law for 45 years, and I guarantee you won't find a single vulnerability in them." "Vanessa, you're her daughter." Derek turned on my daughter desperately. "You have legal standing. Challenge the trust. Claim she was incompetent when she signed it." Vanessa looked at me with tears streaming down her face. For just a moment, I saw the little girl I'd raised, the daughter I'd loved with my whole heart. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "Mom, I'm so sorry." "Sorry isn't enough, Vanessa." Detective Morrison stepped forward. "Mrs. Whitmore, would you like to present the evidence now before we transport them?" I nodded. I needed them to understand. I needed them to know that I'd seen everything, known everything, documented everything. Trish brought out a laptop and connected it to my television. The screen flickered to life, showing surveillance footage from my house. "This is from 2 weeks ago," I said. "Watch carefully." The footage showed Derek breaking into my house through the back door. It showed him going through my office, photographing documents, accessing my computer. Then it showed him in my bathroom, going through my medications, pulling out his phone. "What you're seeing," Detective Morrison explained for the official record, "is the suspect researching drug interactions and lethal overdose amounts for the victim's prescription medications. This demonstrates clear premeditation for murder." Vanessa made a strangled sound. "Derek, you told me you were just going to scare her. You said we'd pressure her to sign the documents, but we wouldn't hurt her. I told you what you needed to hear to keep you compliant, Derek said coldly. You're weak, Vanessa. You always were. I needed you to get close to your mother. That's all you were ever good for. I watched my daughter's face shatter. Whatever love she'd felt for Derek, whatever hold he'd had over her, I could see it breaking in real time. Show them the text messages, I said to Trish. The screen changed to show text message transcripts. Derek and Vanessa discussing the plan. Derek saying they needed to make it look like an accident. Vanessa asking if they really had to go through with it. Derek threatening that she was already complicit and would go to prison if she backed out now. These messages were obtained through a legal subpoena, Detective Morrison said. They're admissible as evidence. There's more, I said quietly. I pulled out papers from Charles's folder. This is a FedEx receipt showing Vanessa sent a package to a known document forger in Newark, New Jersey. 3 days later, a forged quitclaim deed for my house appeared in Derek's possession. Vanessa, you paid someone to forge my signature. You actively participated in trying to steal my home. He made me, Vanessa cried. He said we had no choice. He said we'd lose everything if I didn't help him. You had a choice, Margaret said harshly. You could have come to your mother. You could have gone to the police. You could have divorced him. Instead, you chose to become a criminal. I pulled out bank statements next. This is documentation of the fake caregiver company you and Derek created. $19,000 stolen from my accounts over 8 months. Your signature is on the business registration, Vanessa. You're listed as co-owner. You withdrew the money. You spent it. Derek said it was just borrowing. He said we'd pay you back. Did he also say you'd pay back the $6,000 stolen using my old debit card? I asked. Or the forged checks? Or the fraudulent credit card applications in my name? With each piece of evidence, I watched Derek's expression harden and Vanessa's crumble. He was calculating, looking for an exit strategy. She was realizing the full scope of what she'd done. I interviewed Derek's previous wives, I said, looking at Vanessa now. Did you know he's been married twice before? That both marriages ended with restraining orders? That he has a pattern of targeting daughters of wealthy widows? Vanessa's eyes went wide. You told me you'd never been married before. You told me I was your first. Derek laughed bitterly. And you believed me. God, you're stupid. You really thought someone like me would marry someone like you for love? Officer Rodriguez tightened his grip on Derek's arm. Watch yourself, Mitchell. But Derek wasn't done. The rage was pouring out of him now, all pretense abandoned. You were a means to an end, Vanessa. A pathetic, desperate woman so grateful for attention that you'd believe anything. I researched your mother, found you, studied what you needed to hear, and played you like a violin. And you fell for every single word. Vanessa was sobbing so hard she could barely breathe. Part of me wanted to comfort her. Part of me wanted to hold my daughter and tell her it would be okay. But the larger part of me remembered the text messages, the forged documents, the stolen money, the plan to kill me. Vanessa, I said, and my voice was harder than I'd ever heard it. Do you know what hurts the most? It's not the money you stole. It's not even that you helped him plan to kill me. It's that you looked me in the eye every single day and lied. You hugged me. You called me mom. You cried on my shoulder about your problems, and the whole time you were plotting to destroy me. I didn't want to, she wailed. I was scared. I was trapped. You were complicit, I said flatly. You made choices, bad choices, criminal choices, and now you'll face the consequences. Detective Morrison checked her watch. The transport van is here. We need to take them in for processing. Wait, I said. I walked over to Vanessa, looked down at my daughter, this stranger I'd given birth to, raised, loved with everything I had. I want you to know something, I said quietly. I loved you more than anything in this world. I would have given you everything. All you had to do was wait. All you had to do was love me back. but you couldn't even do that. Mom, please. I've changed my will, I continued. You'll receive $1 and a letter explaining why. Everything else goes to charity, the foundation that your father and I always dreamed of creating. Every year it will help young artists achieve their dreams. Every year it will do good in this world. And every year you'll know that you threw away that legacy for a con man with gambling debts. You can't do this to me, Vanessa screamed. I'm your daughter. You stopped being my daughter the moment you decided to steal from me, I said. The moment you decided my life was worth less than Derek's approval. I turned to Derek. And you. You thought I was just another foolish old widow you could manipulate. You thought I was weak, confused, easy prey. You are weak, Derek snarled. You're a pathetic old woman clinging to a house and money you don't even need. You're going to die alone and forgotten, and no one will care. Maybe, I said calmly, but I'll die with my dignity, with my integrity, with the knowledge that I built something meaningful with someone I loved. What will you die with, Derek? Prison records? A history of fraud? The knowledge that you destroyed lives for money you never even got? His face twisted with hatred. I should have killed you weeks ago. But you didn't, because you underestimated me, and that was your biggest mistake. Detective Morrison and the officers started moving Derek and Vanessa toward the door. Derek was still yelling, threatening lawsuits and consequences. Vanessa was crying, calling my name, begging me to forgive her. I watched them being loaded into separate police vehicles, watched the cars drive away down my long driveway, watched until the red taillights disappeared around the bend. Then I walked back into my house, my beautiful house that Richard and I had designed together, and I sat down in his favorite chair. Margaret came and sat beside me, taking my hand. Are you all right? No, I said honestly, but I will be. Charles and Trish started cleaning up the abandoned Thanksgiving dinner. Detective Morrison was on her phone, coordinating with the prosecutors. The other officers were packing up their equipment. My house was full of people, but I'd never felt more alone. I'd lost my daughter today, not to death, but to something worse, to her own choices, her own greed, her own weakness. But I'd also saved myself. I'd fought back. I'd refused to be a victim. And somehow, that would have to be enough. After everyone left that night, I sat alone in my living room for hours. The Thanksgiving dinner was still on the table, untouched. The turkey had gone cold. The pumpkin pie sat uneaten. All that preparation, all that planning, and in the end, we never ate a single bite. I should have felt victorious. I should have felt relief. Instead, I felt empty. I'd won. I'd protected myself and my assets. I'd exposed the criminals and seen them arrested. But the cost of that victory was my daughter, my only child, and no amount of money or justice could fill that hole. I cried that night, not the way I'd cried when Richard died. That had been grief for losing someone I loved. This was different. This was grief for losing someone who'd never really loved me back. Maybe that was worse. Charles called the next morning. Eleanor, how are you holding up? I'm here, I said. That's about all I can say. The prosecutors want to meet with you next week. They're building their case. With all the evidence we have, they're confident about convictions. How long will they go to prison for? Derek is looking at 15 to 25 years. Multiple counts of fraud, forgery, theft, conspiracy to commit murder. He has priors, which will work against him. Vanessa, Charles paused. Vanessa's attorney is pushing for a plea deal. If she testifies against Derek, they might offer her 5 to 10 years with possibility of parole. 5 to 10 years. My daughter would be in her 40s when she got out. Middle-aged, her youth gone, her life destroyed. She made her choices, I said, and I almost believed it. The trial took 9 months. I attended every single day, sitting in the courtroom watching my daughter and her husband face justice. Derek never showed remorse. He smirked and postured, convinced he'd find a loophole. His attorney tried to paint me as a vindictive old woman who'd trapped their client. But the evidence was overwhelming. The jury deliberated for less than 3 hours. Guilty on all counts. The judge sentenced him to 22 years in federal prison. Derek shouted obscenities as they led him away. I felt nothing watching him go. Vanessa's trial was harder. She took the plea deal her attorney negotiated. In exchange for testifying against Derek and providing detailed information about his other criminal activities, she received 7 years with possibility of parole after 5. Before sentencing, she was allowed to make a statement. She stood at the podium in her orange jumpsuit, her face pale and thin, and she looked at me. "Mom, I know you'll never forgive me. I don't deserve forgiveness. I was weak and stupid, and I let a monster manipulate me into becoming a monster too. I stole from you. I lied to you. I helped plan something unforgivable." Her voice broke. "I don't expect you to love me anymore. I don't expect anything. I just want you to know that I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." I sat in that courtroom and said nothing. I didn't cry. I didn't react. I just watched my daughter be led away in handcuffs. That night, I wrote her a letter, the only communication I've had with her since the arrest. "Vanessa," I wrote, "I loved you from the moment you were born until the moment you decided my life was worth less than money. That love died when you chose Derek over me, when you chose greed over family. I hope you find peace in prison. I hope you become someone better than who you were. But I won't be part of that journey. Goodbye." I never mailed it. I keep it in my desk drawer. Some days I think about tearing it up. Some days I think about sending it. Most days, I just leave it there. A year has passed since that Thanksgiving. I'm 68 now, and my life looks nothing like I expected. I sold the Connecticut estate. It had too many memories, both beautiful and horrible. I bought a smaller house on the coast of Maine, right on the water. Every morning I wake up, and the first thing I see is the ocean. Endless, peaceful, free. I've thrown myself into the foundation. The Richard and Eleanor Whitmore Foundation for Art Education is now operational, with a board of directors and a clear mission. This year, we gave scholarships to 25 young artists. We funded art programs in 12 underfunded schools. We sponsored 3 emerging designers at Fashion Week. Every student we help, every program we fund, every life we touch. That's Richard's legacy and mine. That's what matters. Not the money Derek tried to steal, not the daughter I lost. The good we can do in the world. I've made new friends here in Maine. I joined a book club. I volunteer at the local arts center teaching interior design workshops. I take long walks on the beach with my neighbor's golden retriever. I've started painting again, something I gave up decades ago when the business got too busy. My life is smaller now, but it's mine. Completely, utterly mine. No one manipulating me, no one lying to me, no one waiting for me to die so they can inherit my money. Margaret visits once a month. Charles calls every week to check on me. Trish came up for a weekend in August, and we laughed and drank wine and didn't talk about Vanessa at all. I heard through the legal system that Derek is exactly as awful in prison as he was outside it. He's been written up multiple times for fighting and threatening other inmates. No one has visited him. No one will. Vanessa is at a minimum security facility in Pennsylvania. According to her attorney, who still copies Charles on updates, she's in therapy. She's taking college courses. She's apparently trying to become a better person. I don't think about her often anymore. When I do, I remember the little girl she was, not the woman she became. It's easier that way. People ask me sometimes if I regret pressing charges against my own daughter, if I wish I'd handled it differently. The answer is no. Never. Not once. Vanessa made choices. She committed crimes. She deserves the consequences. And I deserve to live without fear, without manipulation, without people who claim to love me while plotting my destruction. I'm 68 years old now. I've survived losing my husband. I've survived cancer. Did I mention that? Found out I had breast cancer 3 months after the trial. Had surgery, radiation, the whole nightmare. I've been cancer-free for 6 months now. I've survived betrayal by my only child. I've survived a murder plot. I've survived being underestimated and targeted and manipulated. And you know what? I'm stronger now than I've ever been. Not because of what they did to me, but because of what I did for myself. I fought back. I refused to be a victim. I protected myself when no one else would. If you're watching this and you're going through something similar, if someone in your family is stealing from you, lying to you, making you doubt your own mind, please know this. You're not crazy. You're not paranoid. You're not being difficult. Trust your instincts. Document everything. Get help from people you trust. And most importantly, understand that you deserve better. You deserve respect. You deserve honesty. You deserve to live without fear in your own home. Age doesn't make you vulnerable unless you let it. Being alone doesn't make you weak unless you believe it does. I'm alone now, yes, but I'm not lonely. I'm not afraid. I'm not waiting for the next person to betray me. I'm living, truly, fully living. And that's the best revenge of all. Where are you watching from today? Have you ever had to make the painful choice to cut toxic family members out of your life? Share your story in the comments. You're not alone. None of us are. If this story helped you in any way, if it gave you strength or courage, or just made you feel less alone, please like this video and subscribe to the channel. Your support helps me continue sharing these stories. And who knows? Maybe your story needs to be told next. Remember, you are stronger than you think. You are braver than you know. And you deserve a life free from people who would hurt you. Thank you for listening to my story. Thank you for being here. Take care of yourselves, and never ever let anyone make you doubt your worth.